Welcome back to Her Secret Diaries. This is the place where quiet stories finally find their voice. Where the things people whisper about behind closed doors are spoken out loud. If you believe that every life holds a story worth telling, then you're in the right place. Today I want to share something that happened inside my own home. Something I never imagined I would have to say out loud. This is the story of the day my son locked my bedroom door. In my own house, I still remember the exact sound the lock made. It was a small sound. Just a soft metallic click. But sometimes the smallest sounds can change everything. That morning had started like every other morning in the house I had lived in for 37 years. The sun came through the kitchen window the same way it always did, landing on the faded yellow curtains I had sewn myself when Darren was only 5 years old. I woke up before everyone else, like I always did, because old habits don't leave easily. When you spend most of your life being the first one awake packing lunches, making breakfasts, getting children ready for school, your body keeps that rhythm even when the house becomes quiet. I made tea and stood by the sink, watching the backyard. The apple tree was still there. The one Darren had tried to climb when he was 9 and fell halfway up, scraping both his knees. I ran outside barefoot that day, heart racing, thinking he had broken something. But he stood up laughing, blood running down his leg, proud of himself for getting halfway. "I'm fine, Mom," he said. He always said that. I'm fine. Funny how those words follow people through life. When Darren grew up, got married, and moved away for a while, I thought the house had become too big for me. But he came back 3 years ago after his divorce. He said he needed a fresh start. Just for a little while, he told me. Of course I said yes. A mother doesn't ask how long a little while means. At first it was almost nice having him home again. The house had laughter again. Footsteps in the hallway. The sound of someone opening the refrigerator at midnight. But slowly, things changed. Not suddenly. Not in a way you could point at and say, that's the moment everything went wrong. It was quieter than that. Like a door slowly closing without anyone noticing. He started making decisions about the house without asking me. Little things. He replaced the living room lamp because he said it was too old. He moved the couch because he said the room looked cluttered. He reorganized the kitchen drawers because my system didn't make sense. I told myself it was nothing. He was helping. That's what I believed. Then one afternoon he brought home a man in a gray suit. They sat at the dining table whispering while looking at papers. I stayed in the kitchen pretending to wash dishes that were already clean. When the man left, I asked Darren who he was. Just someone helping me with finances, he said. I didn't ask anything else. Maybe I should have. The day my bedroom door was locked began with that same quiet feeling that something in the house had shifted. I came back from the grocery store with 2 bags in my arms and noticed the hallway looked different. My door was closed. That might not sound strange. But I never closed my bedroom door. Not in 37 years. Still holding the bags, I turned the handle. It didn't move. At first I thought maybe the latch was stuck. I tried again, nothing. Then I heard Darren's voice from the living room. "Oh, yeah, that door's locked." I walked slowly toward him, the grocery bags still cutting into my fingers. "Why is my door locked?" I asked. He didn't look up from his phone. "I had to change the lock." I waited. He kept scrolling. The silence between us grew heavy. "Why would you change the lock on my room?" I asked again. Finally, he looked up. Not angry. Not guilty. Just casual. "Mom, we need to talk about the house." Those words landed in the room like a stone dropped in water. "We need to talk about the house." I set the grocery bags down on the table. "What about it?" He leaned back in the chair like someone explaining something obvious. "I'm reorganizing things. Making the space more practical." "Practical for who?" I asked. "For everyone." There was only the 2 of us living there. I stared at him, waiting for him to laugh and say he was joking. But he didn't. Instead, he stood up and walked toward the hallway. "Come here," he said. Something in my chest tightened. I followed him. He stopped in front of my door. My door. The door to the room where I had slept beside my husband for 32 years before cancer took him. The room where Darren had climbed into bed with us during thunderstorms when he was little. Darren reached into his pocket and pulled out a key. He held it up. "I'm using that room now," he said. The words didn't make sense. "What do you mean you're using that room?" "It's bigger." I waited for the rest of the sentence. But there wasn't one. "And where am I supposed to sleep?" I asked. He pointed down the hallway. "The guest room. The smallest room in the house. The room barely big enough for a single bed. You'll be more comfortable there," he said. Comfortable. I felt something strange happen inside my chest then. Not anger. Not yet. Just confusion so deep it felt like the ground had moved under my feet. "Darren," I said slowly, "this is my bedroom." He shrugged. "It's just a room. Just a room." I looked at the door again. Behind that door were my clothes, my photos, the dresser my husband built by hand when we first moved into the house. Behind that door was my life. "You can't just lock me out of my own room," I said. He sighed like I was being unreasonable. "Mom, you're overreacting." Overreacting. The word hung in the hallway like smoke. I don't know how long I stood there staring at the door. Maybe a few seconds. Maybe longer. Finally, I asked the question that had been forming in my mind. "Did you move my things?" "Yeah, where are they?" "In the guest room." Just like that. 37 years of memories packed into a smaller space without even asking me. I walked slowly toward the guest room. The door was open. My clothes were piled on the bed. My dresser drawers were half empty. Family photos leaned against the wall like they had been placed there temporarily. But nothing about it felt temporary. Behind me I heard Darren say something else. Something that would echo in my mind for days. "You should be grateful I'm letting you stay here." Letting me stay. In my own house. I didn't answer him. Because at that moment something inside me had gone very quiet. And when things go that quiet, it usually means a storm is coming. I sat on the edge of the guest bed and looked around at the small room that had suddenly become my entire world. The ceiling seemed lower somehow. The walls closer. On the dresser was a picture of Darren when he was 7 years old, standing in the backyard holding a frog he had caught. His smile in that photo was so wide it made his eyes disappear. I picked up the frame and ran my finger across the glass. How does a child who once held your hand to cross the street become someone who locks you out of your own room? People always say, change happens slowly. But sitting there in that tiny room, it felt like it had happened all at once. And I realized something else too. The click of that lock earlier that morning wasn't just the sound of a door closing. It was the sound of something else ending. Something I hadn't even realized was fragile until it broke. Trust. And once trust breaks inside a home, the house never sounds the same again. The first night in the guest room felt wrong in a way I couldn't quite explain. Not painful, not dramatic, just wrong. The bed creaked every time I moved, and the mattress dipped slightly in the middle like it had been waiting years for someone to finally sleep on it. I lay there staring at the ceiling, listening to the sounds of the house I thought I knew better than anyone. The refrigerator humming in the kitchen, the pipes ticking in the walls, footsteps moving down the hallway. Darren's footsteps. At one point he walked past the guest room door and stopped for a moment. I held my breath, without even realizing it. But he didn't knock, he didn't say goodnight. He just kept walking. I turned toward the wall and closed my eyes. But sleep didn't come easily. My mind kept replaying that small metallic click from earlier in the day. The sound of the lock. It echoed louder in my memory than it ever had in real life. The next morning I woke up earlier than usual. Not because I wanted to, but because the room didn't feel like mine yet. When a space isn't yours, your body never fully relaxes inside it. I sat up slowly and looked. Around my clothes were still stacked in uneven piles. My jewelry box sat on the nightstand, like it had been dropped there in a hurry, and my husband's photograph, one I had always kept on the dresser in the master bedroom, now leaned awkwardly against a lamp that was too small for the room. I picked it up. The photo had been taken on our 20th anniversary. He was smiling the way he always did when he thought no one was watching. "Looks like I lost the room," I whispered quietly. Talking to photographs is something people start doing when the house becomes too quiet. I carried the picture with me into the kitchen. Darren was already there, sitting at the table with his laptop open. A coffee mug sat beside him, but he wasn't drinking it. He was typing quickly, barely noticing me enter. "Morning," I said. He glanced up for less than a second. "Morning." That was it. No mention of yesterday. No apology. Nothing. I poured myself tea and stood at the counter, watching the steam rise from the cup. "You moved my things pretty fast," I said carefully. "I had help," he replied without looking up. "From who?" "A friend." The way he said it made it clear that conversation was already over in his mind. I waited for him to say more. He didn't. The silence between us stretched again. Finally, I asked the question that had been sitting in my chest all night. "Why didn't you ask me first?" His fingers stopped moving across the keyboard. For a moment he didn't answer. Then he leaned back in his chair and looked at me like someone explaining a simple math problem. "Because you would have said no." The honesty of that answer hit harder than any argument could have. "Yes," I said quietly. "I would have." He shrugged. "That's exactly why." I stared at him, at the man sitting across the table who used to ask my permission before borrowing the car when he was 17. "Darren," I said slowly, "this is still my house." He gave a small laugh, not a cruel laugh, just a tired one. "Mom, the house is in both our names now." My stomach tightened. "What do you mean?" "You signed the paperwork 2 years ago." The room suddenly felt colder. "I signed something for the bank," I said. "Yeah," he replied. "The refinancing." I remembered that day vaguely. He had told me the interest rate would be lower. He said it would make things easier. I had trusted him. "You said it was just paperwork," I whispered. "It was," he said. "Paperwork that added me to the title." For a moment the entire kitchen felt like it had tilted slightly. "You put your name on my house. It's not just your house anymore." The way he said it was calm, matter, fact, like he was explaining the weather. I gripped the edge of the counter. "I didn't understand that," I said. "You signed it." 3 simple words. "You signed it." And that, the moment I realized something frightening. The lock on the bedroom door hadn't been the beginning of this situation, it had just been the first time I noticed it. Darren closed his laptop and stood up. "I've got to head out," he said. "Where are you going?" I asked. "Meeting someone. Another man in a suit." He paused slightly. Then he grabbed his jacket. "Something like that?" Before leaving, he walked down the hallway toward the master bedroom. My bedroom. He unlocked the door, stepped inside, and closed it behind him. The click of the lock echoed again, except this time it wasn't locking me out, it was locking him in. I stood in the kitchen, staring at the hallway. For 37 years I had been the one who took care of that house. Every crack in the wall, every broken hinge, every leaking faucet. Now I couldn't even enter the room where I used to sleep. After Darren left, the house fell silent again. But the silence felt different now, heavier. I walked slowly down the hallway and stopped in front of the locked door. My hand hovered near the handle. Of course I knew it wouldn't open. Still, I tried. It didn't move. I leaned my forehead gently against the wood. "I painted this door myself," I murmured. 2 coats of white paint. I remembered Darren standing beside me when he was 13, holding the paintbrush the wrong way. We had laughed when he accidentally painted a line across the floor. That memory felt like it belonged to someone else's life. I stepped back and looked at the door one more time before returning to the guest room. Inside the small room, my life still sat in piles waiting to be reorganized. But I didn't start unpacking. Instead, I sat in the chair by the window and watched the street outside. Neighbors passed by walking their dogs. A mail truck drove slowly down the road. Everything in the world outside the house looked normal, which made what was happening inside feel even stranger. Around noon, the phone rang. I almost didn't answer, but something told me I should. "Hello," I said. A woman's voice replied. "Hello, is this Mrs. Carter?" "Yes, my name is Linda. I'm calling from the housing office regarding the property evaluation." My heart skipped. Evaluation? Yes. We were told someone would be home today. The room seemed to shrink again. "Who told you that?" "Your son Darren, of course." I closed my eyes. "And what exactly are you evaluating?" I asked. "The property value," she said. "For a potential listing." Listing. That word felt like someone had quietly dropped a stone into my chest. "You mean selling the house?" "Yes," she replied gently, unaware of the storm her words had just created. I sat there gripping the phone. "No one told me about that," I said. There was a pause on the other end. "Oh, I'm sorry. I assumed you knew." I looked around. The tiny guest room. My clothes stacked like temporary luggage. My photographs leaning against the wall. The locked door at the end of the hallway, and suddenly something inside me became very clear. Darren hadn't just taken my bedroom. He was preparing to take the entire house. And he thought I wouldn't stop him. What he didn't realize was that the quiet inside me the night before wasn't weakness. It was the moment something else had started forming. Resolve, because a mother might forgive many things, but being erased from her own home, that was something entirely different.